Hey y'all, it's Caitlyn Stroh and Jason Butt here. We just watched the Georgia basketball team defeat Alabama 70-63 for their last game of conference play. Jason, what do you think of the game?
It was a great performance by Georgia, and I thought that this really signified in a weird way. I think just a week and a half ago, we were all so down on this team and the fact that it didn't live up to expectations after the Auburn loss. And then you look at what happened today. They're now riding a 3-game winning streak. They're now 17-12. I personally wrote them off, and now I'm kind of saying maybe I shouldn't have. I'm one of those guys when it comes to college basketball. I don't want to write a team off too early because you never know what can happen. And I did. And it just after the Auburn loss was so bad, I thought that there was no way this team could overcome it. And tell you what, they haven't quit. They could have quit, and they haven't. Yeah. They've gone 3 straight games. This was a great performance from a Georgia team that, outside of Shannon Hale dropping 25, an unsuspecting 25 points, a guy comes off the bench, doesn't start.
Like 15 in a row at one point or something like
that? He
had
15 consecutive points at one point. And outside of that, they did a great job defending their premier players, a great job scoring the ball inside early. They got 31 points from their front court, which I'll have to go back and do some math, but I don't know if they've gotten 31 from the front court all year. They got 19 from Yonte Maton. They got 8 from Derek Ogbede and 4 from Mike Edwards. I think getting production from the 5th spot on offense is going to be huge for this team going into Nashville for the SEC tournament. So you're looking at a program all of a sudden that's kind of trending upward. That maybe if they win 2 games in the SEC tournament and teams that were on the bubble such as Alabama kind of stumble or Vanderbilt loses early, you're looking at all of a sudden a Georgia team that may not have as bad of a resume because of the strength of schedule that they played in during the non-conference season, combined with the fact that they are starting to get some games. And obviously, if they somehow make it to the semifinals, I say somehow, I believe that's just 1 win. Or maybe is it 2 wins? I'm not sure. But 2. Okay, so if they get 2 wins, they make it to the semis, all of a sudden you're looking at a team that's going to play Kentucky or Texas A&M more than likely. And depending on how they do in that game, all of a sudden things could turn around and change. A lot of different viewpoints on where this team is. Right now, they're definitely not on the bubble, but I think they have a chance to work their way on all of a sudden. And
so you don't think the surge is too late?
I don't. I did. It's weird it's so weird how basketball works.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that Georgia has going against itself is that next week during all the conference tournaments, there are going to be teams that in the mid-major conferences where, say, a front-runner team doesn't win its tournament, and then there's going to be a team that wouldn't have otherwise made the tournament steal a bid. That's going to be bad for the teams on the outside of the bubble looking in that try to work their way on the bubble, to the point where the best way Georgia can get in the tournament is by winning the SEC tournament. See, you laugh because the way Georgia's season has been.
Texas A&M
exactly.
And Kentucky are both in the SEC.
And they beat Georgia, and they beat Georgia by 34. Both teams did. So Georgia hasn't played on that kind of level all year long. So nobody's going to think going in that Georgia's going to win the tournament. Stranger things have happened. Also, as I noted in a story I wrote yesterday for today, on Macon.com.
Today is Saturday.
Today is Saturday. Yes, thank you very much. In 2011, VCU. Nobody had them on the bubble. Not one basketball analyst, not anybody. And the tournament, and that was the first year they had to play in games. The committee put VCU in as an 11th seed, and it shocked everybody, and it just so turned out they made everybody look stupid because VCU went to the Final Four as a play-in 11. Not saying Georgia's going to do that by any means, but now that there's 68 teams and they have a little more leeway in terms of how they evaluate these teams, I shouldn't have, you know what, I'll admit my mistake. I shouldn't have gone on the record in print and say that Georgia needs to win the SEC tournament. I want to reverse that. I think if they get to the semis or the championship, that they do have a shot at being back on the bubble and being selected into the field. The bubble. I can't talk. It's been a long season.
Yeah, I can get that. Yeah. What was I going to ask you? So I guess let's play a game of worst case, best case. Realistically, what could you see coming from this team? Excuse me.
Well, worst case is they go into Nashville and lose on Thursday, and then their season's over. They're not going to get an NIT bid if they lose.
CBA, couldn't they?
I mean, they're not CBI, CIT. There's all these other ridiculous tournaments that teams basically have to pay to go into. They're not going to. Georgia's not going to do that. I would be hard pressed for the seed or to believe that Georgia would go to one of those lower tier tournaments. I do. If they win a couple games, I think the NIT does take a good look at them. If they end the season, say 18-13, they win one, they even two, but don't get in the NCAA's. And Georgia would gladly take an NIT bid because it's additional games for guys like Derek Bede, Mike Edwards, some of those big freshmen to get game experience. Yeah. So would fully anticipate that. But yeah, worst case, they lose first round. They're not getting an NIT bid. I really don't believe they would.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
But they win 2 games and kind of put themselves back on that bubble that people like me wrote them off of. Maybe they're kind of that, Georgia, let's reward them because of their strength of schedule. They have I believe it's a top 5 non-conference strength of schedule. They have been playing better of late, and especially if the game they lose in the NCAA tournament is a close game, to say Kentucky or Texas A&M, you could see it swinging that way. If they get to the finals of the SEC tournament and not too many teams steal bids, I really wouldn't be surprised if they wind up in just seeing how this team has progressed in a week and a half. And it sounds crazy.
But then you end up with a scenario where they're probably, the 16? They're low.
They're not going to be 16 because they're from 14 to 16, usually from 14 to 16, those are the lower tier, low major, mid-major conference tournament champions. They would more than likely be somewhere in the range of an 11 to 13.
Playing
top. But if they get, it's funny, the 12, they were a 12, that's the 5-12 matchup is usually the matchup. You get kind of
were they last year? Were they a 5-12?
Last year they were 10. But they kind of, I don't want to use the word I want to use right now, but they got robbed. In the sense that they were a 10 and had to play Michigan State, which was a 7, and there was no reason Michigan State should have been a 7. Yeah, and then Michigan State goes to the Final Four, obviously. So Georgia got hosed. I'll say that. That's not the word I'm looking for. And I sound like a Northern or a Michigan person, Michigan or a Canadian saying that.
Go back to Washington.
But it's interesting to see. They got a 12. It's weird. That 5-12 matchup is usually where you see some upsets. And I think Georgia, that would be being an 11 or 12. I would think if they got in as an 11 or 12, they'd be in the play-in. They'd be one of the 4 teams that got into a play-in game to play into the regular 64-team tournament. So that's kind of where they're at. And obviously, if they win the SEC tournament, you're talking about them maybe getting a 10 or an 11. And probably not being in the play-in. They'd be in the field, I would assume. And but let's not get ahead of ourselves there because of what we've seen this team do against A&M and Kentucky.
Yeah, and you'll be in Nashville covering the SEC tournament.
Yeah,
yes.
Their first practice is on Wednesday. As of this recording, not
Saturday.
sure. Yeah, Saturday at what we got? It's okay on Caitlyn's broken watch. South Carolina's still playing right now against Arkansas, and so don't know. It looked like South Carolina was winning. It's looking like UGA is going to be a 6 seed. Don't hold me to that right now, but that's kind of where things are looking. Not sure who they would play yet, but they would play. First game would be Thursday. Their first practice is on Wednesday. I'll be up there Wednesday for the first practice. Stay tuned to Macon.com. If you're in the Macon area, pick up a print edition. I know those things are not as vibrant anymore, but please pick up a print edition.
They're great. Our print edition is great.
I meant in terms of the national perception of newspapers. The Macon and Telegraph print edition is fantastic.
Okay. Well, on that note, thanks for watching, guys. Follow Jason in Nashville and see tomorrow as he writes about Charles Manning and Kenny Gaines in their career.
Yep.
Thanks for watching, guys.